My earliest memories are for the most part happy. I believe I was happy. You ever have that feeling that you can't fully trust your memories? How you actually felt? I guess you age your perspective on the situations you were in before. My family was the typical $1 million family. Dad, workaholic, mom because of how her childhood was. Withdrawn, and big brother my rock in younger years. We started in a duplex. At least that's where my memory begins. I have memories of seeking approval, skipping rope and looking for adult praise. A time when I was pretending to be Cinderella, scrubbing our brick patio in the backyard. I want to always be older than I was, as if I would unlock some secret to life, and being happy with the answers. It can be soul crushing to learn that no one has them. Anyways, along with my earliest memories, is one of the worst. A babysitter taking advantage of me. I don't remember being afraid, me age 4 or 5 and him an older teen my parents didn't know. Over years of self-reflection I believe it was that search for approval. Why? Why did I care so much? Because maybe they had all the answers. My life I feel begrudgingly is wrapped around these young moments. I have spent a lot of my 34 years trying to figure out who I am. Nature versus nurture. I feel empty a lot, and then full of emotion as well. I don't know what category I fall in. In some cases I believe I feel empathy and then sometimes wonder if I just uphold the social norms expected. Do I really feel empathy? Most of the time I feel annoyed. Does it stem from lack of answers? Or am I warped in some way by experience? We moved out of the duplex and into the country. And no, my parents didn't know about the babysitter until I was a teen, and I understood the situation fully. The country life was nice. Our family built our house. However, it made isolation easy. My brother and I were home from off the bus until our mom got home from work. My brother was pretty individual from a young age, which meant I was on my own, like it or not. I have to say being in the country was a beautiful place to be alone. Living in Ontario, the pine trees were inviting, at least to me they were. The dark green trees seemed to thicken at 4 feet or higher, which was ideal for little me, all the pine needles to run on. A silent Eden. I don't know if I imagined him into existence to this day, but I would talk to a boy named Michael. He wouldn't answer me and would always stay at a distance. He was the same age as me, 6. He wore overalls all the time. I would talk to him, even when I didn't see him, in the trees, sitting on pine needles. I only saw him for a few years. After that I ran out of the neater ability to see him. I never missed him. He just wasn't there one day. I kept playing outside just completely on my own. I embraced my own thoughts. They would question mortality from a young age. I believe that is where the roots of my continued depression stemmed from. I have been diagnosed by a psychiatrist with clinical depression, resulting from a 9-day mandatory stay at the hospital when I was 32. My younger years seemed sexualized, or that my memories had a more sexual theme stand out to me. In elementary school I had a boyfriend who playfully kept records with me of how many times we kissed. Very innocent. I, however, have a memory of spending a night at his house when we heard his uncle having sex. We were about 11 or 12. This will be one of many experiences like this I have in my upstairs life. My parents had a friendship with a couple who lived near us in the country. They would drink upstairs and us 4 kids would play outside or in the basement. On one occasion another kid would show up. He was at least 4 years older than me. While watching Richie Rich, he pulled a blanket over us and started moaning. He was playing a joke to the other kids while actually groping me. I didn't know what to do. The need for acceptance came over. I silently let him do what he wanted, which was nothing but groping. His bad-smelling breathing in my face. Eventually he stopped and there was weird glances between my brother and I. I found myself talking with teachers in charge of supervising at recesses. In a way, learning to manipulate adults. I knew more than I let on and asked a lot of questions. Always looking for the answers I needed but never getting them. I found in grade 6 that saying the truth sometimes threw adults off so much they would not question you further. Nothing crazy. My teacher confronts me about a test that I poorly failed and asks if I studied. I know he fully expects the scripted yes, I did, but I simply reply no. His shocked expression tempts me further. My dad was going out of town, and I wanted to spend time with him. The teacher chides, "You could have spent time with your dad studying me." Knowing the worth of my cute face said, "Yes, sweetly." My male teacher, captured by my cuteness, lets it slide. And lying when it suits me but with truth mixed in is ignited. Psychopathic. I don't know. I was popular through elementary school until about grade 6. Not sure what happened. Dethroned maybe. But around the time I had a boyfriend for literally maybe 2 days. He lived maybe 30 minutes from me by bike. He biked over, we then biked together to an abandoned car down the road. We sat on the hood awkwardly for maybe 10 minutes, and he biked me home, where I gave him a kiss on the cheek and he left. I am not sure how long he waited, but rumors started of me pleading with him to grab my boobs on this excursion to the car. I weirded him out. I don't know. But everyone in my class looked at me differently after this. And I resented it being a lie. The class skank when none of us even fully understood it. A loneliness again ensued. Being misunderstood a starting constant in my life.
As a part of a Japanese studies exchange student program, I ended up in a small village in the Kansai prefecture, in the care of the Kurokawa couple. The wife, Mai, was lovely but physically frail, and always suffering some chronic ailments. So her husband Tadashi constantly insisted on a set of rules to accommodate for her health. Point 1. Never touch the plate of black rice on the table. Point 2. Be gentle around Mai, as she shouldn't be startled. Point 3. No matter how loud the rats get at night, leave them be. I asked Tadashi about the plate of untouched black rice, but all I got through my limited Japanese was that it has something to do with purification and warding evils. Given the Inari shrines and torii gates in the village, I figured it's some Shinto ritual, even though I've never heard of a Shinto practice with black rice before. Mai was young and sweet, but her sickness left her with a poor appetite and pale complexion. I did my best to care for the house in her stead, as she seemed to fall apart at the slightest breeze, which means I often found evidence of thieving rats chewing around the place. When I brought up my concerns with Tadashi, he simply dismissed me with the promise of calling an exterminator. But it was becoming gradually more difficult to ignore the gnawing and scuttling at night, as those little pests shuffled through the house in search of food. One night, the noise kept stirring in my ear, tearing away any poor semblance of sleep I could muster. That's it, I decided. I'll just shoo them away and go back to bed. I won't mess with anything in the house. I just need to scare them off long enough for me to sleep. Groggily, I dragged myself up from the futon and stumbled into the living room, but stopped dead in my tracks to the turned back of Mai. She was hunched over the plate of rice, stuffing grains into her mouth with both hands. Black rice spilled from the corner of her mouth onto the floor, but she kept chewing and gulping down fistfuls of the stuff. Inhuman squelches echoed deeply into the darkened house. When I gasped, she spun around with panicked, wild eyes glaring out of their sockets. In the brief moment of confusion and terror, she fell to the floor, knocking her head on a corner of the table. I rushed to her crumpled body. But as I held her form in my hands, my fingers felt no blood. Her seams came undone by the neck, and threads began to unravel. From the void beneath her skin, black rice spilled out. They poured out of her body by the gallons, like a punctured sandbag. It was the kind of crime scene that desperately made you wish you could just lock up your daughter at night, you know. Safe and sound, hide the key. The victim was a mess, is what I'm getting at. Limbs torn off, organs missing, deep bite marks of all shapes and sizes on nearly every revealed extremity. Her eyes were open. By that I mean they were split in half, more than likely a deed performed while the victim was still alive and breathing. And the blood, man, there's blood. Sometimes you wonder how much of the stuff a healthy human body could possibly accommodate without turning into a bloated bag of shifting fluids. The room was drenched, I guess is what I'm saying. Not a single dry surface to be found. I knew it the second I laid eyes on her. Body fresh, blood still dripping, an unnatural aura about the place, like a lingering sensation of evil. I was first on the scene, a couple of uniformed officers showing up not a minute later. At that point, I knew I had no choice. I knew we couldn't leave. So I did what anyone would do in my position. In a hushed tone, I told the officers that I suspected that the murderer was still in the house, quite possibly hiding, just waiting for us to leave. My decision to split them up, to send them hunting on their lonesome, is something I'll have to live with forever. Officer Gordon was the first to fall prey to the silent death. I found him in the basement, hanging from a noose fashioned from his own intestines. His eyes were bulbous orbs, a death stare of unimaginable horror. I shook my head, swallowing down chunky pieces of my half-digested meatball sandwich. What a way to go. Still fairly quick though, I'd imagine. Officer McKenna wasn't so lucky. It probably took him several minutes to bleed out from the wound of his missing, genitalia. He tried to scream, I suspect, but she made damn well sure to puncture his lungs as well, before removing them completely post-mortem. I found the half-chewed remains in the kitchen, a trail of bits and pieces of both officers soon leading me directly to her. "Hi there, pumpkin," I said, running my fingers through her blood-stained hair. "It is way past your bedtime." "I'm sorry, Papa," she whispered apologetically. "I was just so hungry." I smiled and kissed her forehead. "It's okay, sweetie," I said. "Papa's got you."